Hello and happy Monday.
Happy Monday, one and all.
It's our Christmas do tonight, isn't it?
Yeah.
At
New
European Towers.
Works outing, fantastic.
It is. So we're getting a podcast out of the way before we go.
Yeah.
And
This
indulge.
is just the preamble.
Yeah. Anyway, it's been a long old year, hasn't it?
It has. There's been plenty going on.
It really has. I was casting my mind back to maybe say a few words after the main course, but it has been such an eventful year. I think everybody is feeling a bit knackered with it, don't
Not
they?
surprised. I mean, half the people on Earth voted, didn't they, in elections?
Is that right?
Yeah.
Is that a record, I presume?
I assume so, yeah.
Amazing.
I mean, a lot of those elections will be not what we would call free democratic elections, but they did vote.
Extraordinary.
Amazing figure.
So tonight, dear listeners, we're going to talk about the world's greatest idiot, Prince Andrew.
And then
the world's greatest liar, Boris Johnson.
It's a sort of idiot lying special.
Yeah, it's a defective human special.
It is. Yeah, very festive though.
Let's start with Andrew.
Good joke. Okay, well, first of all, should we have because this is all about the China spy, alleged, who was named today as Yang Tembo, who was previously known as H6. And there was Ian Duncan Smith demanded an emergency question in the House.
Yeah.
So shall we get a quick blast of him asking Dan Jarvis
good idea.
how this happened?
And when it comes to a member of the royal family, I simply say this. How was it that somebody who was known to the Security Committee, to the security forces, was allowed to get so close to a member of the royal family without proper scrutiny exposing them?
He makes a good point, doesn't he? Which is,
Totally.
I mean, Andrew is an idiot. There's no two ways about that.
Yes.
I've met him actually a couple of times,
So have I.
and he's an idiot.
No. I mean, you can tell at 2,000 paces.
And he's a rude idiot as well, an arrogant, self-entitled,
I'm afraid
rude idiot.
He's kind of, the Queen's last horrible gift to the world, right? An entitled idiot son.
And she indulged it
Totally.
as well, didn't she? I don't want to speak ill of the
no, but there's no way
late,
around
great
it.
Queen. I mean, she did mess up with him.
God bless her and all who sailed on her, all the rest of it. But Andrew was a complete disaster of parenthood.
Have I ever told you my Buckingham Palace butler story when I was in the Daily Mirror? Have I done it on the podcast?
Yes, you have.
Have I? Okay, well, I won't do it again. But it was the one where
it's sort of like a Last Christmas, It's like Wham's Last Christmas or Slade,
As Victor Lewis Smith once told Piers Morgan, do you think when Frank Sinatra gets on stage at the Sands and starts singing My Way, they tell him, "Shut up, Frank, we've heard it before"?
It's exactly like My Way.
Yeah. So anyway, we had a reporter undercover in Buckingham Palace. I was the one running the operation, and it was to expose security flaws, and it was also to have a great peek at, what was going on inside Buckingham Palace. And all of them came out with some credit and humanity, except Andrew, who was an absolute arse, and one of Ryan Parry's job, the undercover reporter, was to open the curtains in the morning and invariably would be told to fuck off, get out of it, just a rude, nasty, horrible grub.
I mean, to say he is the weakest link in the royal family is kind of unfair to weakest links around the world.
But we've just done something which I, to my astonishment, learned MPs cannot do in the House of Commons, which is slag off the royals.
Yes, wasn't that interesting? So before the statement, or before the question rather, Lindsay Hoyle, the Speaker of the House, said, that members would remember, and then he quoted Erskine May, the Parliamentary Manual, Clause 96, subsection 4 or something, which says basically you can't say anything about the royal family, which I thought was a bit much.
It was a bit much. I mean, having just watched the last episode of Wolf Hall on Sunday night, I thought I felt for Thomas Cromwell.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
At that moment. How times have changed.
I'm
not
quite
much.
Pro Thomas Cromwell.
Yeah. But anyway, but the point that was made is not a bad one in Andrew's semi-defence, which is how did they let him get so close to him?
So let's sort of scroll back a bit. What happened? The now named alleged Chinese spy, who until this afternoon was had an anonymity ruling against him, it was being referred to as H6.
And we should make clear, he completely denies being a spy.
Denies it. All this is allegations. Yeah. And today, in order to kind of take some of the heat out of it, he voluntarily asked for that ruling to be lifted. Named as Yang Tembo, aka Chris Yang, is a former chair of Hampton Group International. It's a consultancy, and he's been barred from the country by the last government. He's contesting that, which is why it's sort of still sub judice and everything. This group, the Special Immigrations Appeals Commission, which is quite a secretive body, judged that he was a security risk and he can't enter the country again. Now, on his mobile, which was seized when this all became an issue, was detailed information about his relationship with Prince Andrew, including a message from one of the Duke's advisors, Dominic Hampshire, which told him, age 6, young Timbo, that he sat, quote, at the very top of a tree of Andrew's confidants. And there's stuff in there, surprise, about their financial dealings. And he was twice invited to Buckingham Palace and once to Windsor Castle and St James's Palace and to the Prince's 60th birthday party. I mean, he really got to the very heart of the Andrew world.
He must have been absolutely gutted when he found out that counts for nothing.
Well, I mean,
in British
what's interesting, I mean, it was obviously, from Andrew's point of view, again, surprise, all about money. You know, he in the messages he says, you're authorised to act on the Prince's behalf in international financial initiatives in China. What's, to me, the most stunning detail of the whole story is that this came after the Newsnight interview with Emily Maitlis about Jeffrey Epstein in November 2019, which led to the loss of his royal duties, HRH title, sovereign grant, that's the taxpayer dosh. He had to pay $60 million to one of Epstein's victims, Virginia Giuffre, who'd accused him of a sexual assault, etc., etc. And basically, here is this guy, a prince, 8th in line to the throne, who is the easiest mark in Britain. He needs money. He's refused King Charles's offer to downsize and move to Frogmore Cottage. He needs to raise $3 million a year for security and another $250,000 for the annual rent, and he is really short. But I mean, to your point, I suppose, what's extraordinary is that it should have been obvious from the Epstein affair that he was an extremely vulnerable entry point to the British establishment, even if he wasn't, as it were, at the heart of the British establishment anymore.
I mean, this is what's galling about the fact that you can't slag them off. It just makes me...
we can.
We can't. No, but I mean, in Parliament, the fact that they still have this establishment privilege around them, and yet you have individuals, not fringe characters, a central player like Andrew. And if you cast your mind back 25 years, he was every bit as high profile as Charles,
the Falklands War hero,
and all of this stuff. And yet with absolute no judgment whatsoever, and in fact voraciously greedy when it comes to coin, and I suppose if you are a spy, and again we must say this guy denies it, but if you are somebody seeking to promote the interests of a foreign state, and not necessarily a friendly foreign state, he, as you say, he's an easy touch, isn't he?
Yeah, and he is in town. He does go to royal. He doesn't have royal official duties anymore, but he's around very, very senior circles. I mean, whether he has access to any useful intelligence, I doubt very much. But nonetheless, if you're an alleged spy, as this new role, he's not a bad person to get into your councils because he's an idiot, and he's very well connected.
Well, also he's
a superb asset.
If nothing, I think he probably serves as a bridge to more useful people, like
other politicians,
and stuff.
And so, the other thing that I find absolutely baffling is that the institutional memory of the royal family is pretty useless. I mean, they were burnt so badly by Anthony Blunt, who was one of the Cambridge spies. He was keeper of the King's pictures after 1945, and very much in the inner circle of the royal family, undertaking very sensitive errands for King George VI in Germany, and all the while being a KGB spy, and wasn't unmasked till 1964.
Brilliant TV drama.
Yes,
with.
Sam West.
Sam West,
Tom Hollander and people like that. It's really good.
And that amazing scene where he's talking to the Queen about one of the portraits in her collection, whether it's a real portrait or not.
Yes, and the assumption, based on what I don't know, is that she knew before it was made official.
Amazing.
But, you'd have thought that collectively, that the institution of Buckingham Palace, which is full of courtiers and officials, would have a sort of group memory, folklore, and be very careful about, because the next wave of spies, as it were, was going to come in a much more sort of multiple, complex form.
Yeah.
And it did. And no one put a cordon sanitaire around this idiot.
Yeah, yeah.
Which is criminal, really.
It is, it really is. The flip side to all of this is that we had an example of royals actually being incredibly useful the other week at the opening of Notre Dame.
Yeah.
William having a substantial conversation with Trump. Like it or lump it, someone's going to have to talk to him, and it's better if he has a good opinion of Britain than a bad one. And William doing a stand-up job of presenting the best of British there. So
sure. No. I mean, I think that's right, but they have got an Andrew problem.
Yeah.
I mean, he's funny
and
he's ridiculous, but actually this was a bit too close for comfort. So he said he's not going to do the Christmas Day
lunch.
Walk.
Has he pulled out? Oh,
yes,
but he's going to the lunch.
He's not going to. No, he's not going to go to Sandringham at all.
Right,
and he's not going to go. And there's a photo op when they go to the church on Christmas Day.
Yeah, that's right.
He's not going to be there. But the bigger question really is, does he now go into exile, like his great uncle Edward VIII, who lived mostly abroad after the abdication
with Fergie?
Yeah, I mean,
they're still together, aren't they?
Kind of. I mean, I actually,
in a sort of convenient
unfashionably, have a high regard for her. I know her a bit, and she's made massive mistakes, but to the extent that she's sort of brought those two girls up and held it together at all, in the worst possible circumstances, I've got respect for her.
Yeah, no. I mean, you can ridicule them all you like, but she made a go at making a proper business for herself.
Yes.
I mean, she was leveraging the influence and
power.
Well,
she had to raise the money to pay for the girls' security.
Because she'd been hung out to dry a little bit, hadn't she?
Well, I mean, this is what they do. And they did it with Diana too, which was when you're out, you're out.
Yeah.
But no one else knows that.
Yeah.
So Diana didn't have, the reason she ran to the Fayeds was because she didn't have proper close protection.
Yeah.
It was insanity.
Is that right?
Yes. I mean, you're talking
about
the most famous woman in the world.
Yeah.
Paparazzi all the time.
Yeah.
And she'd lost her HRH, and she'd lost her diplomatic protection.
Yeah.
So, of course, she wanted a patron, someone to look after her, and people take advantage of that, as the Fayeds did, and with the consequences that we all know.
And this is why Harry and Meghan are so bristly about not getting the protection they believe they deserve, because Harry presumably says, well, this is history repeating itself.
Well, I have to say, I mean, I carry no water for those two, but he's right.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want, put it this way, if you're the king and your job is to keep the firm, as his mother used to call it, going, you have to, even with the most troublesome members in fact, especially with the most troublesome members, make sure that they're not put in mortal danger, that they're safe, because the sums of money, and he needs $3 million a year, Andrew. Well, actually, for the crown, that's lunch,
peanuts,
right? But there's a vindictiveness to it all, which is just not compatible with modern sort of celebrity culture and danger.
And also the leaking from the various camps.
Yeah, I mean, it's very vindictive.
It's horrendous.
Very, very, very bitchy. And I don't think that one has gone away, actually. I mean, it comes and goes. It's not as feverish as it was a few years back when he wrote the book, Harry, but it is there.
Can you see a time when, or a circumstance when we dispense with it?
No, absolutely not. I mean, I know that logically I ought to.
Yeah.
But I think, in fact, it does, and this sits very ill with most progressives because it's irrational.
Yeah.
But irrational things command huge loyalty.
Yeah.
And it obviously, when she died, the grieving was immense. But what's interesting is how popular Charles has become, having been quite an unpopular and divisive figure.
Yeah.
When he was Prince of Wales and battling with Diana, he's quite a popular figure. And I think when people say, "Oh, it's time for a republic," I mean, if you were starting from scratch, but you're not.
No, of course.
The whole point about this country is we haven't had revolutions; we have had evolutions, which is part of the problem. I suppose.
I just can't. Yeah, I can't envisage the circumstance.
No, that's the point.
Unless it comes from them. Unless.
Well, it won't.
Like a sort of papal kind of resignation, Benedict style. No.
It won't. I mean, why? For a start, the Crown Estate is one of the biggest landlords in the country.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, another thing which people find very hard to stomach, but it's the truth. They do believe that they're divinely ordained.
Yes.
I mean, this is incredible. You know, the only bit of his coronation that Charles wouldn't allow to be televised was the anointment.
That's right.
You know, do you remember you went around that sort of bivouac?
Because you have to lift your shirt, don't they?
Oh, it's all very personal, but I think it's not just that. It's kind of this view that he's literally opening the Raiders of the Lost Ark style, you know, radio communications with God, which is totally bonkers, but it's there.
So while we're on the topic, have you seen Wolf Hall?
Yeah, no, I loved it.
It was absolutely superb.
No, I think it's one of I love the books, and I think Rylance is masterly. Yeah. And Damien Lewis is masterly.
I've got to say, Damien Lewis was, and I'm not just saying this because he's a Liverpool Football Club fan, which he is, but he was. There were episodes in there where I thought he blew Rylance off the stage. I mean, overall, Rylance was just unearthly good, you know.
Yeah.
But Lewis was fantastic in this series.
What I think Rylance is so good at is communicating with Cromwell the combination of psychotic manipulativeness with vulnerability.
Yeah.
I'm not sure there are many actors that can do that. And it's a very... And so it's a great... He turns... I mean, historical dramas can be quite dull, actually, is the truth, and very superficial. But what Hilary Mantel got, and this dramatisation has got par excellence, was the subtlety of power broking, and also the brutality of it. You know, the things that could turn on a dime. Yeah,
the dialogue in the. I mean, there's no spoilers to give away here because he does get his head chopped off at the end.
We know this. You know,
he loses the argument.
If you don't know that, you know now.
But the dialogue between Stephen Gardner, Norfolk, and him in the Inquisition is stunning.
It is, and the. I mean, to go back to your original point, you know, will we ever get rid of them? You know, the lunacy really of the idea of a church based on the personal life of the king. Yeah. You know, he is the head of the church because Henry VIII wanted to marry Anne Boleyn.
That's right.
Which is,
I know, orchestrated by Thomas Cromwell.
A truly bonkers fact. Yeah. The idea that a church can have, you know, that God can kind of choose England.
That's right.
It's amazing.
That's right. But
explains so much, doesn't it? You know, that's all of the problems we have, you know. It's God.
It's God's fault. It is, and
I mean, I'm not saying God should be in the shit list next year, but because he's not, we don't know that he's British.
Where would you'd have to put him number one, couldn't you?
Well, I mean, you'd definitely get in trouble if you didn't put him in number one. I mean,
can you imagine if you put him like number 9?
I tell you, the heavens would part, the seventh seal would be opened, right? It would be Armageddon, mate.
By the way, talking of God, we've got a very funny and potentially blasphemous cover on our Christmas special.
It is
just
brilliant.
Gone to press, which involves the baby Jesus, Joseph and Mary, and Keir Starmer. Yeah. And Keir Starmer asking, "My dad was a toolmaker. What does your dad do?" Anyway,
we are going to hell, aren't we?
We are going to burn.
We're going to burn, but it's worth it, you know.
We're not going to burn as quickly as our next topic, which we'll come to after a very short break.
God damn it.
Yeah. See you in a moment. Welcome back, listeners. I should just remind you, if you haven't got any, if you're struggling for Christmas present ideas for your nearest and dearest, give them a subscription to the New European.
You should.
And you'll get a free copy of Alistair Campbell's Diaries 2024.
It really is worth having.
It is worth having. It's an excellent read, full of great anecdotes and insight on an extraordinary year. So go to theneweuropean.co.uk/2Matts, that's the number 2, MATTS, and you can sign up from just £1 a week, and you'll be beloved by somebody this Christmas. Or get one for yourself, of course. Anyway, talking about idiots and lunatics, we can move swiftly, seamlessly onto Boris Johnson.
Yeah.
He wrote the most extraordinary column. I mean, credit where credit's due. Some of the phrase making is brilliant.
He is unfortunately our P.G. Wodehouse in the sense that, you know, he does know how to write ludicrous but quite engaging prose.
Yeah.
You know.
For listeners who haven't read it on Mail Online, and I don't read it, we'll give you a very good summary of it. Don't give Mail Online the click. But it's all based on the Mail on Sunday's splash, isn't it? Which is that Keir Starmer has composed this so-called surrender squad.
The surrender squad. They sound like a rubbish superhero group, don't they? You know, like a superhero group that instead of saying Avengers Assemble says, we give up.
It's like a really short DC
it would be about
Marvel
3 pages
movie.
long because they'd all get together and then give in, right? So anyway, the surrender squad is a really quite small unit of 100 civil servants who help with Mr. Sir Keir's reset. There's a lot of resets.
It is,
yeah. And this one is being set up to work on the negotiations with Brussels on the reset. Now, there are so many levels of derangement to this that I hope we can do justice to it. But the brilliant thing was Johnson said, that's more than 100 is more than it was needed for Brexit. No, it wasn't. Yeah. They had to hire 100,000 people to get us through Brexit. Right?
I mean, it was so incompetently done. You wouldn't be surprised to learn there was only 100, but it's not the case at all.
No. And, there are always... there was a task force, apparently, for Rishi Sunak's Windsor framework. Yeah. There's always a task force. So this is really... I mean, if my view on the whole story, I don't know about you, Matt, is kind of if only there was a unit in the Cabinet Office.
You said on WhatsApp, if only it was true.
Yeah, I mean, it would be so great. Yeah. But you're right. He dives into this absolutely lunatic series of claims, and they are, as usual with him, written very amusingly. So he says, we gave him, Starmer, the benefit of the doubt. Millions of people went to the polls honestly believing that Brexit was safe under Labour. It's clear that Starmer was taking them for fools. And then he gets to the bone. He says, Labour's mission is plain, to haul us slowly back into the orbit of the EU, to the point where Britain is effectively a colony, a vassal state, the orange ball chewing gimp of Brussels.
The orange ball chewing gimp of Brussels.
That is both insane, but I have to admit,
and brilliant,
very readable.
And who hasn't got an image now in their heads of?
I am thinking of Keir in the basement of the two hillbillies in Pulp Fiction. Exactly.
Yeah,
and I'm sure that was what he was intending.
Yeah. he says, I call on everyone who cares about democracy and the economic salvation of this country to fight, and fight again for the freedoms the people voted for in 2016 and which they believed were secure.
Bit of you Gateskull in there.
Absolutely. Well, also a bit of Trump, wasn't it?
And a bit of Trump
said fight. Well, Trump from the podium.
Yes, fight. Absolutely. Oh, that's true, actually. Yeah. It's much more.
He also, the most odious line in it, and nothing is accidental with Boris Johnson.
No.
When he said he described us as clicking our heels to the whim of Brussels, like little Nazis, basically, weren't the British Army don't click their heels, but the German
he often uses
Nazis
metaphors very, very well. He always does. Yeah. And another line that amused me was him saying, "We must, of course, respect the law and the Constitution." This from the man famous for fucking Partygate, who unlawfully prorogued Parliament.
Yeah,
I'm not going to take any lessons from you, mate, on the law. Mm. But I think there is. I mean, first of all, this is all nonsense. We wish there was a secret, squad, not surrender squad, but a kind of get back into
a sensible squad.
But a sensible squad. There was a wonderful example of how deranged they are. His sidekick, Lord Frosty, said, everyone in this government really wants to rejoin the EU one day. Only public opinion is stopping them. It's the other way round.
It's absolutely the reverse.
It's completely the other way round. That is the opposite of the truth.
There was a chart the other day. Did I screen grab it? This is the bit where we say, get it up, Jamie, if we were on the Rogan show.
Yeah, which we practically are.
But and it basically, every single age group, even people who voted Leave now want to go back.
Yeah.
Even the old Leave voters say this was an absolute balls up.
Yes.
So public opinion is 100%.
There's a famous Martin Amis line during the sort of towards the end of the Conservative government that ended in 1997. He said that it just seems to me sometimes that everyone in the country is Labour apart from the government, right? And that's kind of now. Everyone in the country is sort of, can we please go back in? It was a bit of a mistake.
Yeah.
But Starmer is saying, no, we made a promise, we will not go back in. And Johnson, in this totally manic piece, is saying that we're going to hand back power over fisheries, we're going back to freedom of movement, if only.
He said, on that point, he said,
Had you know how many
He
students
says
there
it's only youth movement.
Do you know how
It's
many
like
youth-
70 million people will
Coming.
have unfettered access to our shores.
coming here?
70 million
Every single one of them setting up a mosque.
swarthy foreigners.
Yes, breaking point. And we're going to become rule takers over. This is all lies. So what I was trying to think about what the hell is going on, because obviously it's meant to create the kind of noise that it has. Mm-hmm. But I think partly he will have done this because he's out of Parliament. Farage is in Parliament, and Farage is the story at the moment. Mm-hmm. And if you're Johnson, you must be thinking, you can't be not the story for too long.
Yes.
And his memoirs, though they made a reasonable ripple, didn't really explode, did they?
Well, let me tell you a little anecdote. Yesterday, my wife put out about a dozen books on, you stick them on your wall in your front garden.
Yes.
And invite people to just take them.
Yes, of course.
And I had an advance copy of the Johnson thing. She couldn't bear having it in the bloody house to start with.
Brilliant.
So it went out there, but it was the last to go. It was the last to go.
That, and also, if I may say so, without doxing you and revealing classified information about your whereabouts, you live in what I would call a quite literate political part of the world, right?
I'm probably left wing. Well, definitely left wing.
Yeah, but also
but interested.
People who follow the news and are interested in media. I'm sorry I'm using code, listeners, but you all know what I mean. But the fact that they left it there is really interesting. Yeah. And that wouldn't have happened with previous. Anyway, so it didn't make a big splash. Yeah. And Boris must be feeling that he's sort of receding into the horizon. Yeah. And I think we can reliably expect to see him in 2025 saying more and more crazy things like this. Because, of course, and I hadn't really thought this through until very recently, he'll be looking at Trump back after a brief secondment to the courts.
Yeah.
And thinking, well, if he can come back, Churchill came back, Trump came back.
Yeah.
He will totally be thinking that, and he'll be really angry that Nigel Farage is hoovering up so much oxygen.
How would that? I mean, he would have to state the obvious. He would have to stand for election at some point, which might prove to be a minor inconvenience in his imperial journey.
He would, but let's say things stay as they are.
Yeah.
So Starmer is the most unpopular person in the history of the world, right?
Yes.
Already.
Yes.
And
apart from Prince Andrew.
And it's but he's just not an elected official, right? He's just one of our overrulers by birth, which is nice. But let's say that Keir Starmer just carries on plummeting, right? I mean, this is only the beginning, right? By the end of 2025, he is minus 927% of the polls. Right? He's just... But Kemi Badenoch hasn't broken through.
Yeah.
She's still talking about engineering and Thomas Sowell and the books she's read. And, I'm going to do things at my own pace. And people are saying, well, do you think you might give us a little bit of a clue what you're doing? I will not be rushed. And everyone will buy that and say, well, okay, we give up. Yeah. So Farage will be sort of...
rampant.
And also measuring the curtains for Downing Street. At which point, I mean, the Tory parties, they always say, I think it was William Hague who said that the Tory party exists in two modes, complacency or panic. Yeah. And it will definitely be panic by then. And at that point, it will start to reach around. And there's not an obvious person on the Tory front benches that I can see who would do a lot better.
No, I mean, if the alternative is someone like Robert Jenrick.
Exactly. I mean, that, if you replace Badenoch with Jenrick, you're not going to get...
Forget it. Right. You might as well just give it to Farage.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's the circumstance in which...
but wouldn't somebody have to let him into the party?
Yes,
they'd have to give him the seat
there are people
to
that
fight.
would do that. I mean, there were people, after he left... The Cincinnatus. Do you remember the thing about the Roman?
I'd forgotten the name. I was going to ask you.
Brought back, and
back from his plough.
They all. One of the most irritating thing about the Johnson gang is they use 1951 as a code, and this just refers to Churchill coming back into government. But it's like they'll sort of literally touch their nose and go 1951.
Really?
Yeah, and unbelievable, intolerable provocation, right? Yeah. But they do it.
Amazing.
So he's not. I mean. As Jerry Adams once said, they haven't gone away, I mean, he's one of the things about these bastards, right, is that they just are chewing gum on the shoe of the nation, aren't they?
They are.
I mean, they just won't fuck off. And he's only 60.
Yeah. And you've got to think, what's going on? So he's doing his tours, I'm guessing. He's doing speeches, but he must find that fairly unrewarding mentally. I'm sure it's
he
very
likes
rewarding cash-wise.
money.
Yeah.
Always has. And probably this is the first time that he's been seriously liquid in money, you know. But he likes being the star of the show most.
Yeah. And he won't go back into media, will he, properly? He won't become the editor of the Telegraph at some point.
For example, do you remember when he was going to be a presenter on GB News? Whatever happened to that?
Yeah. They gave him £1 million, didn't they?
Yeah, but what I mean is, where is he?
Yeah.
So you can see, I just think that these kind of outbursts of lunacy will become more frequent because it's interesting. I mean, what was interesting about this was that it was interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, I think his Mail column has been
doggerel a lot of weeks
compared to his Telegraph columns, which used to be sort of something to look forward to just in terms of the prose, because he wrote so well.
Yeah.
I didn't necessarily agree with them at all, but of course, but that I found them they've not really lit up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But this was full octane, dialed up to 11 craziness.
It was.
And it's got that thing in it, which I think we've talked about before, but it's sort of this idea that Brexit was engineered to fail.
Yeah.
You know, that the best thing that could happen to Brexit was that it wasn't done properly.
Yeah. Which is Farage's line as well.
Exactly.
So you've now got a world where Farage and Johnson are competing for that territory.
Which is a weird thing, because it's like that's what Marxists always say.
Yeah.
You know, it hasn't been tried.
Yeah.
Or Gandhi's most irritating remark.
Which one was that?
It's really irritating. It's someone said to him,
"Oh, the Daily,
what do you think of Western civilization?"
That would be nice.
And he says, "I think it would be a good idea."
That's right.
Which everyone says, "Oh, so clever," and it's like, fuck off, such an irritating, so bloody irritating. It's like everyone nods and goes, "Yeah, that's right," you know, because Western civilization is useless. Who needs penicillin, man? Right? And the way everyone nods and thinks, Ben Kingsley was so good as him, and I hate it. It's like, I don't hate Ghandi. No, I don't hate Ghandi, but the smug one-liners, the sort of Oscar Wilde, right? Oscar Wilde in a loincloth stuff is just intolerable, right? In that particular one, just
you don't think? Well, it was a good line.
Yeah, that's all. But that's what it was. It was like Mr. Peace, Mr. Brilliant, Mr. Wonderful, Mr. Civil Disobedience, right? And it's just like, they'll get him, right? You know, it's like the witticism. You know,
this was not on my checklist for today's podcast. It's just Gandhi was a twat.
I don't think Gandhi was a twat. Just if there are people out there with their finger hovering over the cancel button. I mean, I'm so long cancelled, it doesn't matter. But Gandhi was great, okay? Get that down. Gandhi was great. I think he's wonderful. I love him. I have a little statue of him in front of my pond. No, but I might. Right?
You will have tomorrow.
I will. Yeah, exactly. I'll get one. Promise. It'll be my New Year's resolution. Gandhi statue must have. Right. So I do think he's great, but I think that was a fucking annoying thing to say.
Yeah. Okay.
And the way that everyone nods seraphically and goes, "Oh, yeah, I love it. It's so clever. I really like it when Gandhi hates us." You know. No. Sorry. Enough ranting.
So anyway, there we go, folks. We've joined Ghandi, Johnson, and Prince Andrew in a triangle of hate.
Yeah, I think of the three, Ghandi
gets a pass.
Oh yeah, I mean, you know, Ghandi, top geezer, you know, diamond bloke. You know, and he did actually achieve something. I mean, you know, he liberated. Although, of course, Boris Johnson claimed he liberated the UK. So you don't want to
slightly lesser scale of achievement.
Yeah, and also slightly less successful in the sense that, you know, whatever you think about, you know, Modi, India is the biggest democracy in the world now, basically thanks to Ghandi, and whereas Britain is now going back to, you know, it's desperate. I mean, the China thing. I mean, we're sort of desperately pretending that we're going to be really tough on the Chinese.
I think just to bring it full circle, that is probably what lies at the bottom of the whole China story. Is the idea that the Chinese could really be arsed with us? Totally. It's quite complimentary, actually, isn't it?
I mean, it is, and I think part of the problem is that one of the reasons, a bit like it's a bit Tinker Tailorish in the sense that the reasons they want access to the inner sanctums of the UK is so they can get at US stuff rather than our own. Yeah. But you know, it is truly, and of course, as ever, it always is the story, isn't it? This is all because of bloody Brexit, because you know, the story of the next 10 years is going to be a great big, one hopes not bloodshed war, but a war of some sort, a trade war at minimum between the US and China.
Yeah.
And the fact that we are on our own is deeply worrying.
I saw a clip on. I never watched Jeremy Vine's great show on Five Live because I'm very much on the Sean Locke side of
you're
things
thoughtful
when it comes
as
to
well.
That. So, it's just like it really is like abysmally, oppositional TV. And of course, they set it up today with the guests. They had Annuncia Rees-Mogg.
Oh, Rees-Mogg, Jacob's sister. Yes.
And Marina Purkis, who's this left-wing firebrand from the Trawl podcast.
Yeah.
And Annunciana was saying, how marvellous this new trade agreement with the Trans-Pacific trade agreement that we now somehow geographically involved in.
Yes.
And Marina said, this is like celebrating finding a tenner when you've just thrown your wallet in the sea.
That's a very good
point. And
it
was a great analogy.
Right. So Keir Starmer... is having to really, really implore G for an economic reset. Again, that word.
Yeah. Have you tried switching it on and off? I mean, that is basically that, isn't it?
He's
the IT
man. Do you remember tracking on videos?
He's the IT man.
Tracking's touchy. So he's desperately going to Beijing next year, and Rachel Reeves is going, and Lammy's already been, and they're sending Ed Miliband. Whether he's got a return ticket, I don't know. But
by the way, fair play to Nick Robinson in his Ed Miliband interview last week.
If you haven't heard it, listeners, go to the Today.
What day was it? Can you remember?
Friday, I think.
Friday on the Today programme.
Yeah.
And Nick Robinson was grilling Ed Miliband about various things, but then came onto the topic of Syria.
The Great Betrayal.
And it was very timely because in our podcast the week before, you had said you'd never forgiven Miliband for bottling it, for calling for military intervention over the horrendous treatment.
And he got quite annoyed about the whole thing, didn't he?
And Nick Robinson absolutely nailed him, and said, any regrets? And he doubled down again and got really angry about it, and said, well, we'll never know, will we, Nick, and it's all... of course I was right to do it,
I think he should be sent as ambassador to Syria with the new regime. Explain to them why he did what he did in 2013.
Yeah, talk it through with the people
sure that they'll really enjoy,
who went through the next decade.
They'll love him because he talks human.
Yeah, does he? Yeah. Is that what it's called?
Do you remember that when he was...
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, ridiculous man.
Well, there we go. We've dispensed hate in equal measure across a broad spectrum of victims.
You've got to get it out your system. That's my view, is that we've got the festive season coming.
Yeah.
And you got to be goodwill to all people, persons, of whatever.
Sure. We'll see.
So today was Hate Day.
Yeah, good. I enjoyed it.
The hour-long hate, as we would have called it, right? And from now on, it's just love all the way. Good.
Well, I hope you liked it, dear listeners. Thank you as ever for all of your lovely feedback and comments. They keep coming in. We really do appreciate it. Send anything you want to tell us to 2matts@tnepublishing.com. That's the number 2, MATTS @tnepublishing.com. There's a link in the show notes. Do subscribe to The New European. It'll make my Christmas and it'll make yours. So go to theneweuropean.co.uk/2mats. Thanks as ever to our production team, Rethink Audio, led by Matt Hill. And until Friday...
No, Thursday night.
Thursday night, yes.
Until Thursday night.
Until Thursday night, when
exciting new arrangement.
Exactly, yeah.
Have a fantastic week.
Have a wonderful week.